Hello, 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 and welcome in to Bear With Us on Bear Claw Media Podcast. I'm Chris Bolin, and I'm not joined by Ben today. Actually, we got an upgrade from Ben, I'd say, and I think Ben may say the same thing. Coach Houston Reed, assistant men's basketball coach, kind of long-time basketball figure in my life as well, coming from the Arkansas Valley. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great, Chris, man. Thanks for inviting me on this evening.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So, let's hop right in. Couple weeks under your belt now, summer camp. Gotta take a look at some of the new guys, some of the guys returning, maybe made some leaps. So I'll leave it about as open ended as I can. Kind of what are your takeaways from these first couple weeks?
Yeah, man, it's always exciting to start off with of just such a quick flip, as you know, where your season ends and you deal with the portal and guys coming, guys leaving, and you blink your eyes twice and the guys are back on campus again. And so it's always an exciting time as we get a new team together for the first time. As we gain our first impressions of not only our new players, but even returning players that are, fulfilling, maybe different roles or bigger roles. And so, as you get through those first couple of weeks, you're trying not to necessarily over-evaluate. It'd be a lie to say that we're not always evaluating, but it's just exciting. Exciting to get them in the gym. It's exciting to start teaching and showing guys, what the Bears are about, how we do things and what's in our system of play. And everybody, it seems like, to be honest with you, in the first 2 weeks really puts their best foot forward. And so if you don't walk away with a good impression, it's going to be a long year. And so impressions are great to start. Guys have put their best foot forward. And now as we get into week 3, 4, 5, and we get through camp and the grind really starts, we start to learn a lot more about our guys and about each other.
Okay. And whether it be somebody coming back from last year or it's about 50-50, right? I think 8-8
Or
or
8 and
maybe
8.
9-7. Oh, perfect. So it works out. Has anybody stood out? Whether, I imagine you're probably not going to say anybody that stood out bad. So anybody that kind of has surprised you so far?
It's too early in the year to get negative, Chris. Yeah, no, definitely for me, three guys, I guess, but two guys that really have stood out a lot to me is Quinn Dankert. Has really stuck out to me. Quinn really bet on us when he came here, in knowing that we had a kind of I wouldn't say solidified, but we had an experienced backcourt. And he did a tremendous job of fulfilling his role last year, and it was a big part of why we were so successful. But now to kind of see him as kind of a lead guard right now, and I'm just really proud of his mental approach. Really playmaking right now in our live play, in my opinion, getting guys involved. His leadership has been what you would want out of a fifth-year guy. And so just really fun to watch him kind of in a new role. And then the second guy is a guy that's been around for a long time. Is Brock Wisney. Just looks like a vet. It's nothing that really just jumps out at you. But as I watch film and I cut his film and I watch what we're doing, the first thing as a coach, you're looking for mistakes and you're looking for things that you need to fix. And a lot of times when you don't show up on film, a lot of times that's positive. He's just doing a lot of things right. And then obviously a guy like Zach Blockson every day are as well and dependable. But Quinn and Brock have been two veterans that have been really fun to kind of see these older guys in their last year, and the ownership that they have in our program is second to none.
Yeah, I remember in the scrimmage or practice or whatever exactly that was that I stopped by last week, which thank you for letting me do that. I really appreciate how gracious you and everybody with the program is. Really. That Quinn felt like the adult in the room is what I kind of took away. He felt like the leader in the room. I didn't, because he came here not knowing he had this second year, right? He thought last year was going to be it.
That's right. And so a blessing in that as well is, obviously with some of the legislation that's changed for junior college kids, he was granted that extra year of eligibility, which is great for Quinn, but it's even better for the Bears. And so we're thankful that we have him back, and we really predict that he'll be a big piece of what we did. Is a big piece of what we did last year, but just a little bit more of a larger role. I think is the best way to say it.
Okay. And then coming in with the 8 new guys, any of those that have really stood out so far?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, is we're really not trying to over evaluate too much. Where it's as you know, we run those camps. The hardest part of our summer is the first 2 weeks because we got the guys running little kids camp, we got the big team camp. Those guys do a tremendous job of work in camp. They're still lifting, and we're still practicing in trying to get better. And so it's a lot to start. So we're not trying to over evaluate. I think there's a good balance. I think there's a good balance of our young guys plus portal guys. One player that stuck out to me is I think Tanner Burkita is a local Colorado kid that we've signed. I don't know what kind of role he'll carve out on our team this coming season, but being a young guy and just seeing how well he's molding into college basketball and crap, we started recruiting him when he was probably 13 years old. And so now to kind of see him with your team, at least for me, that's something something that I've really enjoyed. Obviously, Vince Delano has been fun to watch. That he can contribute to our guard play. Caden Erickson has been a young man that's played with a lot of motor, a lot of toughness. Don't quite know, how he's going to pick things up as we get deeper and deeper, but just a kid that's tough and really plays hard. So really excited about that. And then obviously the talent and the length and the intangibles of Ring Neary speak for themselves. And then Chancellor White's a guy that's coming in that we signed late and, working to continue to get in shape and learn. But, I probably missed somebody. We got a couple guys on injured reserve, but just a good combination of those guys, all good first impressions. Nothing alarming. I've been doing this 20 some years to where there are times it's alarming. You sign a kid or you whatever it is, and they come in here and after like a week or 4 or 5 workouts, you go, oh no, it's the film wasn't quite what we thought. And, or this wasn't quite this, or there's been no fire alarms that have gone off. And so, so that part's, that part's good.
Okay, nice. And as a fan, I always love to hear that as well. But so Ibu wasn't at that Yamazaki
Yeah,
wasn't at that practice because he's over practicing with Team Japan, correct?
he
And
is. I'm glad you brought him up, Chris.
yeah, and then kind of along that Zach Block, I don't know what the exact team, but he's going over to Israel, right, to play for some national team or to
Yeah.
practice with some
Yeah, so
national team.
Ibu was with us for the first 2 weeks and just left a great impression with us. Not only as a basketball player, but as a person, a guy that's detailed, a guy that's mature. So was pleased our time with him. And he flew back to Japan and he's working with the Team Japan national team right now. And I actually texted with him yesterday. And he's trying to make that team something that's really important to him. And I said the first cuts I think start tomorrow. And then Zach was headed to his Olympic tryout, and they canceled it. Obviously, with some of the things that are going on, worldwide right now, they thought it was in the best interest and safety to cancel that, and so that just happened yesterday.
Okay, wow. Well, that's a bummer for Zach, but probably
Bummer
good.
for Zach. Looks like he's
Good.
just going to have to stick around with the Bears and just lead us and continue to get better. But an opportunity that Zach is definitely worthwhile for him.
Nice. And how I think Bill Simmons is at least the loudest voice of this in the basketball like areas I kind of listen to, but he talks about kind of guys that play on Team USA especially coming back that next season and just having something different about them. I don't know if maybe that's specific to a team like Team USA, but Ibu going over to Japan and getting to play with some of the best players from Japan. I imagine the like top of the top probably don't have to qualify, but the vast majority of that team does. How important is that? Can that be from an experience, leadership, just kind of growth as a person and player standpoint?
Well, yeah, I think you make a tremendous point. The way I look at it and the way I view it is, and I even have had this advice for my own kids as I was raising my kids through basketball. And I think anytime you're finding yourself into high level gyms, I think it's a whole concept, just iron sharpens iron. And when you're around a high level of play and you're around good coaches and you're around other good players, you're creating an environment that you're naturally going to be able to pull things from, and you're actually going to be able to learn, and you're going to get better. And there's things you're going to pick up and that you're going to take with you. Experiences that you have the opportunity that Ibu has to be in those type of gyms is not something that you can just manufacture. And then also that of for Ebo, just the pride of having the opportunity to represent his country. And so just, how on edge that you are, and the excitement and the energy that comes with that gives it a certain type of level and a certain type of juice that I think that's hard to emulate. And so having the opportunity to do that, I'm sure that there's a lot of things that they can pull from them, and we would expect anybody to come back a better basketball player, a more complete person. And then I think on top of that, the more experiences we have in life allows us to continue to be better leaders. And so great experience for him. One I know he's was looking forward to, and then same for Zach. I know something that was really on Zach's radar and something that he was excited about. And it's unfortunate the situation is what it is.
Well, kind of going back to two guys who are probably a mix of new guys and returners, both redshirted last year, both kind of stood out to me. Arik Mayen, I'm gonna butcher that last name, and then Hunter Caldwell. I didn't realize Hunter was a walk-on. The way he kind of can shoot it.
Yeah, two really good players, man, and we didn't recruit Hunter Caldwell like he was a walk-on, and I mean that in the most respectful way. I mean we put our grit into getting Hunter. Obviously, with the bigs that we already had that were older, we didn't necessarily have a scholarship position, but knew if we could get him in the program, that he would be a tremendous fit for us. I think the thing about Arik and Hunter both is, man, those guys work. They work. They've worked while they've waited. I think both of those players were good enough. They were good enough players to play last year. Truth be told, but obviously we win 25 games and we're 25-8 going into the conference championship. And obviously had some older guys that were just in front of them that were just more ready to play. And so those guys choosing to save their eligibility was smart on their end. But guys from a talent standpoint that have a lot to give. Both of those guys did a great job with Coach Payne getting stronger. They're bought in with 2 feet. We're really excited for them more than anything. Excited for them to take a chance of their opportunities that they get this year. And truthfully, whatever it is, it's opportunities that they've earned.
Okay. And you're I don't know exactly how you guys break this down, but you're quote unquote kind of the Colorado recruiting guy.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the way Coach Smiley has our staff attack our recruiting is smart. We're all broken down into areas. We all have our own areas that we recruit, and Colorado is on the primary recruiter for our staff in the state of Colorado. And then I also cover the state of Texas and junior college, and then Coach Green's got his area, Coach Klope's got his area, and we're really fortunate as assistants, to be honest with you, that we work for a head coach that recruits himself. You'd be surprised about how many head coaches just kind of pass that on to the assistants, and then they just say, yes, I like him, don't like him, whatever. But Coach Smiley's just as involved as all of us. And so we have our own areas that we recruit, but we're very fortunate with a guy like Coach Smiley who's invested in each one of our guys in the recruiting process.
Okay. And with that Colorado prep connection, it's still 3/4 of the way still around here with Zach, Brock, and Egan. And Langston was also a Colorado prep guy. And then, yeah, Hunter, if I start listing people, I'm going to forget them too. So is there any extra focus on like Colorado kids, or is it just like there's a lot of talent in the state that isn't necessarily going to some of these bigger programs?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris. At least for our recruiting philosophy, I think our philosophy in recruiting is we want to start with what's close to home. We want to recruit our state. I think we kind of use the quote, we want to put a border around the state. And I think that says a lot about the program. If you can't recruit and sign guys that are 40, 50, 60, 100 miles away, gosh, you're probably hiding something in your program, or you have to go 5 states away to get something that you could get that's 5 minutes away. And so I think a lot of that goes to our philosophy. A lot of it goes to our backgrounds as well. I'm 46 years old, almost. I'm almost 46 years old. But I've lived in the state for 42 of those 46 years. And Coach Smiley's Colorado native. Coach Klope is a Colorado native. And then we always tell Dorian that he's a move-in. He's a Kansas guy, but obviously went up the road to Colorado State and loves Colorado. So a lot of it is kind of who we are as people. But we want to recruit local first. We want to recruit our state first, and sign all the guys that kind of fit being a Bear that we can get, and then from there we'll branch out and kind of attack our needs from there. But and then you mentioned Colorado Prep. Colorado Prep, as prep schools kind of popped up, over the COVID era, became a great program, and the coach there is a guy that I know I've known for a long time, along with Coach Smiley, and Brock and Langston were high school kids. And then during COVID, when they weren't playing high school games, but the prep was playing a bigger schedule, those guys jumped into prep school. So we were actually recruiting Langston and Brock before they went to Colorado Prep. And then they finished with Colorado Prep, which was great. Both experiences were good for those guys. And then obviously with the rapport we have, we were able to obviously see Zach, and Zach's from Dorian's hometown. And so we were locked into him before that. And then, Egan's from Oregon, but was out there playing for Colorado Prep. So got fortunate with the prep school there, but in a long-winded response there, Chris, we take a lot of pride in recruiting kids from mid-state.
No, long-winded responses are much encouraged. So thank you. But this is something that kind of the closer I've got to college athletics, I think I've really started to notice. How important are those relationships? You mentioned knowing the coach at Colorado Prep. It took me some digging. I didn't realize that Dorian had coached with Medved, I believe, or played for Medved. And that now Medved's at Minnesota. He brings Langston over there. How important is trusting those people that you've worked with and kind of building those relationships as a coach in the greater college basketball ecosystem?
It's everything, in my opinion. It's everything. I mean, it's it's something with my journey. I've been fortunate to coach at a lot of different levels and make a lot of relationships that are along the way, genuine relationships. That are lasting, and building guys that you can trust in their evaluations and in their honesty when it comes to the character of the kids, and guys that run good programs, guys that are running programs that are winning programs is really what we target. But the relationships, and it's crazy as I've gotten older just how connected we all are. And I'm starting to get old enough to where I'm starting to see young people that I coached or coached against, or that were players that are now in the coaching arena, and so it just goes a long ways, and the contacts in your phone just continue to grow, and especially in today's day and age with the portal. I mean, that's it's fast moving, and you can check guys' backgrounds and go, oh, I knew this guy, this coach was coaching junior college, now he's an assistant at this school that the kid's in a portal. Let me pick up the phone and find the ins and outs of this player. And so just it's far reaching, and probably one of the most valuable things, whether in college athletics or business. And if I was a young person or a young coach, just knowing my points of contact and building the genuine relations behind that is one of the most important keys to being successful, in my opinion.
Nice. And you touched on it a bit earlier, 42 years in Colorado. You started, I think, was it Olathe High School?
Olathe, okay. Olathe, yeah.
To Rocky Ford was the first coaching gig. Did you start out as an assistant at Rocky Ford, or did you hop straight to head coach there?
Yeah, no, I did not. I did not. I when I got out of college, when I finished playing, in probably one of the larger mistakes I made in my coaching journey was I played for a guy named Don Meyer. Same coach that Coach Smiley played for, and Coach Meyer asked me to stay and be a GA there at Northern State. And they wanted me to stay and get on staff, and I got married early. Been married to my wife. It'll be 24 years here in about 10 days. And we were married, and she looked right at me and she said, "Get me out of here. It was too cold. We got to go." And I did not give her much pushback. And so I didn't stay with Coach Meyer in the program. We came back to the Arkansas Valley. I got a teaching job at Rocky Ford Middle School. It was my first job. And I actually spent my first year as a volunteer assistant at Los Animas High School. And so then I spent the year there as an assistant, was coaching the C team, the freshman C team. And you know what freshman C team looks like in the Arkansas Valley, Chris.
If you have enough players to field the freshman C team.
The kids that are just coming out for the first time ever, a couple international kids, foreign exchange students. And so that was my first gig. And then after that season ended, Rocky Ford High School was looking for a head coach. And so then I jumped right into being a head coach just a year out of college. And man, I was 23 years. One of my favorite stories, 23 years old. And so I get the job at Rocky Ford High School, and man, my ego was just busting out, and I was proud and like, yeah, I come from that Don Meyer coaching tree. I got all the answers in the world, and I took our Rocky Ford team. I think I took 6 kids up to, at the time it was USC, and Joe Folda was the coach, and Joe Folda had his team camp, and we got beat. I'm not making this up. It was 92 to like 17. And then I came home, and my wife and I lived in a little small apartment, and I sat out on the little patio, and it finally hit me. I got the job at Rocky Ford High School because nobody else wanted it. It wasn't because I was just, it's like, yeah, I got, Rusty Bates catfished me into as a young guy. And so I was like, I really got 2 choices here. And I'm really proud of my time at Rocky Ford. It seems so long ago, but man, just they hadn't won a game in 2 years. And it was just, we got a lot better really fast because we had a long ways to go. And so, I still remember winning that first game as a head coach, and I think the guys thought we won a state championship, and we actually beat Fowler, and they had the Hochaver kid.
Oh yeah,
that name, and so, but went on there, and some of the best coaching jobs I did was when I was really young. We just didn't have anything, and those guys were able to make the state tournament within like a 2 or 3 year stretch, and so, as a young coach, man, I got thrown to the wolves in old Rocky Ford, Colorado.
small world. I didn't realize that Russell Bates gave you your first job, or your first, I guess, official coaching job.
Yeah, first coach. Rusty
Oh wow.
was the principal, and Ryan Nesselhoff was the athletic
Oh
director.
yeah,
And
he
so,
ended up back in Fowler for my senior year as a teacher too. So
yeah, both of those guys were in Rocky Ford, and I was teaching at the middle school and ended up transferring up to the high school and coached there for a couple of years before I got my first college job at Otero.
okay, so yeah, perfect segue. How did that job come to be? Because you're an Otero alum, right? I imagine that helped, because not it feels pretty. Maybe at Otero it's different, because I think Danny Brewer, the baseball coach, did something similar where he went from high school to OJC, or I guess just OC now.
We can
But
call it OJC,
yeah,
Chris.
it
Yeah.
it doesn't feel right without the
Doesn't
J.
feel
It
right.
just doesn't feel right. But how'd that kind of come to be?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't ever remember doing a formal interview with the athletic director. And the athletic director there at the time was a guy named Brad Franz. And Coach Franz is still really, we're still really close, and consider Coach Franz my mentor. But yeah, the job came open. The women's coach at the time was a guy named Taylor Wagner. And Taylor Wagner is now the head women's coach at Colorado Mesa. And Coach Wagner and I were college teammates. And so Coach Wagner picked up the phone, called me, said, "Hey, this job is open. Would you be interested in it?" I said, "Well, of course I'd be interested in it." And to be honest, part of the reason why I didn't know if I wanted to get into college coaching, to be honest with you, I wanted, families always have been very important to me, and I know the time that we're under, and the time commitment it takes in college athletics, and so I was like, let's do the high school thing and be a little more present for my family. And so I started talking to Taylor, and he's like, "Well, let me talk to Coach Franz." And so it just kind of went back and forth. And I kind of asked my wife and said, "Hey, if I had a chance to get this job, I think it's getting more serious. How do you feel about it?" And my wife and I both played at Otero. That's where we met. Otero's close to our heart. She's like, "Let's do it. If you can get it, just pin your ears back and go after it." And so I started talking to Coach Franz on the phone for 2 or 3 hours a night for about every other night. Coach Franz picked up the phone one evening and said, "Hey, you want to come up here and meet Jim Rizzuto, the president?" And he's like, "Bring your wife." So my wife and I sat down with President Rizzuto, and they offered me the job. I was down at a Rocky Ford softball game. Olivia my daughter was in a baby carrier, and I was cheering on the Melineers with softball, and I had a flip phone, and I flipped it open, and it was Coach Franz. And all he said was like, "Do you want the job? It pays." And he told me what it paid. And I said, "Yes." He's like, "Be here in 30 minutes." And so I took the baby back, took Olivia back up, dropped her off with Leah, and I called Coach Meyer on the way up, and I was like, "Yeah, Coach, I just got offered the job at Otero." He was shocked. He's like, "They offered you the job?" So I was all shocked, and so I became a head coach at Otero when I was 25 years old, maybe 26, and so was just so thankful to have that opportunity and being a former player there. And I think that, and having Coach Wagner's support, and then having Coach Franz, who was the athletic director when I was a player there, all that just connected, and it just all kind of came together at the right time.
Okay. And now your daughter's playing for Coach Wagner at Mesa, right?
Yes. Yep. So she's
Okay.
finished her third year of playing at Colorado Mesa for Coach Wagner. And that was her going to play for Coach Wagner was 100% her decision. But I mean, when we grew up there, he's got daughters that are the same age, and we spent the summers at the swimming pool, and we've known each other, and they've known each other for a long time. And so when that opportunity came, it was full circle, and something that Olivia was really comfortable with.
How was that Otero program when you took over? Because I know by the time you left, it was in a pretty solid spot. Was that similar to Rocky Ford, where it wasn't in a great spot when you got there? Or?
Yeah, no, it was established. I mean, Coach Franz was a former coach there, and when Coach Franz took over Otero, he's the one that got lifted the floor on it. And there'd been some successful coaches there, and Otero, as far as in the big regional scheme, when you're talking all 16 teams, hadn't won it before, and always in the total of all 16 teams had never really championship in the sub region. They found success. Coach Franz lifted the floor on that. But I mean, we were just really excited. The year the first year we won it in 2012, just making it to the championship game. Because Otero had never even been to a championship game. And we actually played back-to-back championship games in 2012 and 2013. And knowing that, in the whole history, they never even made it that far. And so we were able to elevate the program. And the truth is that we weren't supposed to be there. When you looked at the big scheme, and I finally started learning how college athletics looked, and you start seeing the finances and the scholarships and the budgets and how programs are built to be successful. I didn't know a lot about that when I got there. It was more blue collar, pin your nose back. Let's get the best players we can, and let's get them to work together as a team, and let's be extremely tough. And so once we kind of started learning that we were really overachieving in that job, and we took it to some heights that it hadn't been to before. And I'm really proud to say that we've left our lasting impression there on the program, and it's a place that's still really close to my heart with my as long as my wife as well.
Yeah, because you were, what's that, 12 total years at Otero between coaching and playing?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, you throwing the playing dates in there. Yeah, I was actually there for 13. I was a special one where I was there for 3 years in junior college. I told Coach Clope we were having some fun on Sunday, and I told him, I said, listen, you don't know how tough I am. I said I spent 3 years in junior college. But I was actually a walk-on. I walked on at Otero, and I redshirted there. And then, after playing for a year, I didn't have much options. And so I chose to go back, even though I'd received my Associate of Arts. And so I was there for 3 years as a player, and then the 10 years as a coach. And so got a lot of lasting memories there for sure.
Nice. And so I imagine it was probably pretty tough, or maybe it wasn't, to take the gig at Shadron when that, I don't know how'd that process go. Was because I don't, is JUCO coach to D2 head coach like a step that is made pretty often, or is that pretty unique too, or how did all of that play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different routes. Guys get to where they're at in a lot of different ways. I think for me, in hindsight, I look at Otero, and well, I also thought I was going to be at Otero for my entire career. I thought I could, at the time, I'll be here for 25, 30 years. And the truth is that, we started having some success, and we won the tournament championship. We went back to the championship. We won the regular season championship. We hosted it. We placed in the national tournament. We started achieving some things to where, as a professional, you start asking yourself, well, what's next? What's next? And I just kind of felt like, to an extent, professionally, we outgrew it. But leaving the Arkansas Valley was one of the hardest decisions that we made. And at the time, I didn't realize it, how hard of a decision it was, especially my wife grew up in the Arkansas Valley, and for us to move and basically to start over from scratch. And that's what families do for coaches. And so I thought it was time for me to kind of take on a new challenge, and took the opportunity at Shadron State.
Okay. And then how hard was I guess same question. How hard was it to come to UNC as an assistant after having only been a head coach for, well, that would have been about 15, 18, 20 years at that point?
Yeah, if you include the high school part of that, oh man, I think you're right. I think it's 13 or 14 years. 13 or 14 years as a head coach, and so oh, you had if you add the Shattern stuff in there after I left Shattern, 17 years. I'd spent 17 years as a head coach before leaving Shattern with the opportunity to come to Northern Colorado. I tell you, my time at Shattern, there's a lot of things I wish that we could have done better and we would have done better. And we never quite figured, at least I didn't figure out the equation to find a complete success there. I thought we had a success in a lot of ways, but I kind of felt like we left the job undone a little bit. But when Coach Smiley got the head job, and Coach Smiley and I's relationship, the roots on that run really deep. And obviously we were college teammates. And then even after we were done in college, he was the coach at Sheridan. I was the coach at Otero. I started my family. He had his family. We ran summer camps together. Our families spent time together. And so we both were growing up in the profession, and he got a crack to be a Division I head coach. And so when he picked up the phone and said, "Hey, I'd love for you to come out here and help me," the only question for me was talking to my family to see if they wanted to move back to Colorado, because the truth is I never wanted to move my kids during high school. I wanted them to be able to, have their full high school careers in one spot. And so sitting the family and the kids down, I didn't know what the response would be, but both of the kids were open to it. And so was Leah. And so the chance to come back to Colorado where our roots are, and then to get connected with Coach Smiley as a professional, and then obviously as a coach, was an opportunity I knew that I couldn't miss, regardless of what chair I would be sitting in. Just knowing Steve and his integrity and how he runs a program and how inclusive that he is, knowing that there would be a way and a place for me to bring value to the program. And Steve is, we all have egos, especially in college athletics. But as far as that stage goes, Coach Smiley's ego is as small as anybody's that sits in his chair. And so I knew that coming in, and knew it would be a great opportunity to still impact young people and be able to teach the game.
Okay. And kind of on that, I think you may have answered this a bit just in that response. What's so, this is going to sound negative, but I'm not trying to make it that way. What's so appealing about UNC from a coach's perspective? Because not long ago, I was looking to see kind of where some of, since the Linder days, some of the assistants had gone off to, and there's only been like 3 or 4 that have really left. And a couple of those have gotten out of coaching completely. So what is it about UNC? Is it the same staff for the last 3 years now too?
Yeah, with adding Dondrell Campbell to our staff, we just completed the two straight years of the entire staff, and that's just completely unheard of. You might have some other staff that move in and out, but as far as like Coach Smiley is the head coach, and then along with Coach Green, Coach Cloful, and myself, we've all been there together in some role or another since the very beginning of Coach Smiley's hiring. And so I think it goes a long way. I think it goes a long way with just the connectivity is the word that I use. Connected. There's friendships that are there. And then the true meaning of friendship comes out. And a lot of times that true meaning of friendship is being able to talk to each other and check each other at times, and be able to have real conversations, to disagree on stuff, but know it's not going to harm your relationship, to know that you've got a group of guys that are pulling for the betterment of the players, and putting the team first. And to be honest, all of that comes with the start of Steve. I mean, Coach Smiley's the start of that, and we just try to carry that out. But the fact that we do have that connectivity and that cohesiveness and that longevity of a staff together, I definitely think matters from year to year.
Okay. And is it just that kind of that environment, the word work environment, I feel like can be taken a couple different ways, but is it that you could probably get paid more somewhere else, but you like coming to work here, you feel good about, you enjoy the people you're working with, it just kind of keeps everybody here seemingly?
Yeah, I think especially for me, for an older guy, being able to come in and exactly. I mean, yeah, I like the way the work relationship. I mean, we're putting in, as you see it. I mean, we're putting 14 to 18-hour days in at times, and so it doesn't. Now, I've texted with Coach Clope 10 times tonight asking about stuff. And so, yeah, it runs deep. You like the people that you work with. The things that can get in the way of what's important just aren't a factor in our program. That's something I'm thankful for. I know it makes me want to be here. And then I think, again, I keep going back to Coach Smiley. Coach Smiley sets a great example of how to carry yourself and how to grind through hard work and some of the things you have to overcome at UNC. And that's not a hit on UNC. That's just our level of basketball. And so he's an example of that. And then we just we 100% follow his lead.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like Otero was probably in a similar position as UNC when it comes to like hierarchy and college, or even within the conference. So how did kind of realizing that and facing maybe a lot of the financial limitations, maybe, I know for football, like every other team has like 3 buses that they travel with, but UNC has 2. Like how I imagine Otero was pretty crucial in kind of getting a jump on figuring out how that works, and then also recruiting guys every year, because you're losing half your roster every year at a JUCO, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I can speak from my behalf. I mean, for me, it's just for me in my career, I've always had to, as a coach, try to find a way to get more done with less. And the truth is after a while, you just find ways. You keep, and it's never perfect. I mean, even in my last couple of years at Otero, we were still tweaking and sanding down and looking at the better ways that we could still do things. And a term I'm using a lot now with our team is not getting stale. We had some success. We've got some returners. We can't get stale. And when you're in a situation where sometimes you got to do more with a little bit less, and you've got 2 choices on how you're going to respond to that. And it doesn't, you mentioned, and this is just my opinion, but you mentioned, you got 3 buses or you got 2 buses. Well, you still got to ride to the game. You can take a charter jet or you can fly commercial. You're still getting to the game. And do those things matter in the big picture, especially the grind of the season? 100% they matter. Are they important? Yes, they are. But at the end of the day, how you can twist it and how you can turn it, I know my time at Otero was we really embraced it. We leaned into not having. We leaned into eating sack lunches on the road. We leaned into I was the bus driver. I had a CDL. I pushed the bus. And so it was just a mindset of, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to practice. I'm going to jump behind this 58 passenger bus. I'm going to push us 6 hours to Torrington. We're going to get off. I'm going to get the scout and the game plan ready. We're going to walk on the floor. We're going to beat your butt. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run you guys through Domino's so you can split a pizza. I'm going to drive that bus 6 hours back. And it was just a mindset to where that's what the equation called for, and that's what needed to be done. And that was the example I think that we set when we were at Otero, and I think players will follow that. There's some comparables there in UNC. You mentioned the recruiting stuff. 100%. Talking to colleagues that have never touched the junior college level, they go, "Oh, we got to get 6 guys," and I'm just like, 6? Hey, man. 6. I just talked to a good JUCO friend of mine 2 days ago, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on? Where are you at?" He's like, "Oh, we still need to get 5." I was like, "Oh, you got plenty of time." He's like, "I'm not even panicked." And so it's just a different world. And so when we have guys come and go in the portal, that's where those relationships come in, and you just have to maybe work a little bit longer. You might have to work a little bit harder, but you can ultimately get the same result. And I think we've seen that within our league. We might have to work a little harder. We might have to work a little longer. We might have to jump through a few more hoops, but at the end, we can get the same result as somebody that you would maybe call a have or has a bigger budget or has certain things. And so it's definitely a mentality and a mindset. I'm not this gray at a ripe 45, almost 46 years old for no reason.
I don't know quite how to ask this, but having like a legend like Don Meyer, who it's seemingly every day I find another coach that came out of that tree at a D2 school, how has that, like, do you think that contributes to the success a lot of the players have had coming out of that? Because you have seen you have had those 8-hour bus rides back right after a game. So maybe driving 45 minutes down to DIA and going through security isn't all that bad. And maybe it kind of gives you that perspective of coaching the biggest team at the highest level isn't necessarily what this is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think starting off with just the base of having an opportunity to play for Coach Meyer, for a lot of us that are in the coaching, you just you get a baseline of an example in the coaching arena of what it's supposed to look like, and that can come from teaching the game to understand how the game is, played, or an example of those things, an example of how to carry yourself. Coach Meyer he was training coaches full time, whether if that was a middle school coach, a college coach, or players. And not everybody went down the coaching route that's played for him, obviously. But for me, it was getting leaving Northern State, knowing I have a base that I can now build from who I am as a coach. Early, I think everybody would tell you that's got into coaching that played for Coach Meyer would say you probably start off trying to emulate Coach Meyer, and then you find out very quickly that you're going to do nothing but fall short. And then you have an identity crisis. Now I got to find who the best version of Houston Reed is, with the values and the standards that have been instilled inside of me from Coach, and the coaching philosophy can go from there. I can still remember before Coach Meyer passed, he came through La Junta, and him and Carmen stopped by. And Lee and I went out to dinner, and the kids got to meet him, and he came and watched a couple of practices. And I'm going to keep the conversation that we had between him and I about, his evaluation of watching me practice. But it was very truthful, it was very straightforward, and it was very, you don't have to do this, and this. And I was at a maturing age to where it was like, I took it, recycled it, took out of it what I could, but then also, just knew that I was walking a different route. And the most important thing for me was to be myself. And I find that to be even more true today.
Well, since I guess Ben wasn't able to hop on tonight, but I had luckily recruited some questions from the Peanut Gallery. These are both from Brennan Bates and Dean Klinkerman. I told them you were coming on, so
Come on now.
they threw a couple.
All
Most of them were legit questions. I'll give them credit. But,
I'm excited.
So first one is, what's the difference in developing bigs now versus 10 or 20 years ago, with how much the game has evolved?
Whose question was that?
I want to just reading it. I think Dean's, but let me.
Good one, Dean.
No, it was Bates. Okay,
Bates.
Sorry, Bates.
Oh, Bates. That's a really good question. I mean, I think a lot has changed. If you watch the Bears play and you watch our bigs play right now, we spend, once we get to the half court, and I know we play extremely fast, the ball's in Brock Wisney's hands just as much as it is Jaron Riley's hand, except for late in the game. And so our system, our bigs, are on the perimeter, and they're making reads, and they're playing quarterback, and they're reading actions, and they're making passes, and they're learning how to get to space. And there's a whole nother skill set that goes with that versus the way I grew up teaching bigs in the SNS camps and the camps that I used to run that you guys attended. It was get your butt on the block, get big, show me the Doliac, show me numbers, bury your guy, catch safely, score simply. And there's a lot of that still exists. That's still a part of the game. That part's not going away. But this, as we've all seen, the skill of the game becoming positionless, and the skill that bigs are playing with, and the way that we play, it's much more of a combination. And so developing those perimeter skills, the passing, the footwork, the ability to stretch the floor and shoot the basketball, the ability to straight line drive, the ability to play with, off of 2 feet in the pivots. There's just a lot has changed, but there still is the true core of really being a true, genuine big. I don't care what you say. You're 6'8" to 6'11". Your butt's gonna spend some time down there, in that RA and that block. And you're a guy that we have to teach guys not to be contact avoidant. We got to teach guys balance. We got to keep guys to play hard, and we got to keep guys to play strong. And the last piece that I'll bring up, even when I was a player, the ball screen was not as prevalent. And so now we're teaching guys to play in the ball screen, the angles of setting ball screens, how to get off actions, how to find the space, how to make reads and rotating defenses. That's something that's changed. It's added to the development a lot that I know I wasn't teaching, back when all you guys were, barely had driver's license.
Then this one's from Bates. As kind of an undersized Oh no, this one's from Dean. The last one was from Bates. I apologize. I should have these two straight by now.
You
We've
can
only
work
been
it out with those two.
yeah. So as an elite rebounder, you're 6'8", right? A little bit undersized for a big at the bottom level of that you're going to be down in the post height. What are some of the finer keys to boxing out and getting position for rebounding?
Yeah, I think it's something that I think for at UNC that we've instilled that. I mean, we were number 2 in the entire country out of 363 teams last year at collecting defensive rebounds, and so it's not just with our bigs. As I think with everybody, I think it's habits. Building the habits, the discipline and the toughness to be able to do your job every time. We whether if it's knowing when to wedge rebound or knowing when to check and confront, check and chase. And then I think even today I can remember Coach Klopp. I can still hear his voice and the expression on his face yelling at one of our guys to grab the basketball with 2 hands. That stuff's not going away. And then I think a lot of it too is for us the teaching part of it is there is more teaching to it. And that's something I've learned at UNC is the way that we utilize film, of watching practice film and then seeing that, hey, whether it's on the offense or the defensive end of, we got a lot of guys that are grabbing and wrapping and they're missing basketballs and having their hands ready. And then on the offensive end, getting 50-50. And so I don't think the number one thing, though, that hasn't gone away, it's a desire. It's a desire to possess the basketball. That you got to have it in a guy like St. Thomas was just, at the end of the day, St. got all the technique and stuff in the world, but at the end of the day, St. Thomas was going to go get the basketball. And I know Coach Smiley coached Joey Bolin boy at Weber State, and Joey was a lot like that. And so the technique and all that stuff's important, but that desire to just go get the basketball, I think, trumps it all.
Okay. And this is something that I've wondered, but I've never been able to, or I've thought, but never actually had a way to prove. But Brock really only averaged like 4 or 5 rebounds last year. But it feels like when he's out on the floor, the team, it shows second in the nation in defensive rebounding. Is he like how much does he contribute to team rebounding, even if he's not getting those rebounds himself?
A lot. And I'm glad this is something that you're pinpointing and highlighting. For Brock, and I'm glad that you brought this up because and we just reminded Brock of the stat that you just said, and I think the stat we gave him was a little bit lower. So Brock has been very intentional in the last several days to go get the basketball. And we're going to need him to rebound from that position maybe a little bit more. But you're 100% right. And with Brock, a lot of time being a little bit undersized, where it's easier for the players and the fans and people from the outside to say, put a body on him. Brock is competing against guys sometimes that are 7 foot. I watch him go against Theo Hughes every day. They're 7 foot, 260 pounds. How about you get down in here and you box him out and you hold off a 7 foot, 260 guy, and then you turn around and elevate 26 inches and grab the ball. I mean, that'd be great. But Brock, we started a lot of our teaching with Brock was like, Brock, if you can't go get it, let's just make sure your guy doesn't. And so that was a lot of the philosophy and the teaching with him is like, Brock, hey, listen here, just hold on to this monster and just keep him off the glass. And if you can't go get the basketball, let's just make sure that he doesn't. And the way that we teach our gang rebounding with 5 guys on the glass, let some of your teammates come in and clean up the glass. We call that being a sacrificial lamb. And there's a lot of things that Brock does that doesn't show up in the stats, but you're 100% right. Our rebounding is better when Brock is on the floor, even though his rebounding numbers don't exactly jump through the roof at you.
Okay. And then this one, I will make sure I get the correct guy right because I'm 0 for 2 so far. This one's from Dean. What's the pitch at UNC? Like, what's the key to getting some guys to come to a mid-low major that are still able to contribute? And it seems like you guys have figured something out, especially in the portal these last few years. And then I guess, is it easier now than it was 3-4 years ago, now that you have the success stories to kind of point to?
Yeah, I think I can hit on all of those things. I think there's 2 things. In my opinion, there's 2 things that I think that we really sell. One of them has been more recently. I mean, just the offensive success that we've had, leading the country in field goal percentage this last season. It's a great accomplishment and speaks to obviously our efficiency. The other stat that jumps out a lot is how fast we play. We get all these advanced analytics, 363 teams. We're always in the top 50 in the country for our tempo, for how fast. And every coach in their first recruiting pitch, when they're asked, well, how do you play? Every coach, not every coach, a large majority, oh, well, we play fast. For us, we can just pull the data and show how fast we play. And then I think, you collect all the other offensive. You look at the Big Sky standings offensively, and we're top. We're number one in the conference in all major categories. And so I think that's appealing to players. I think being in a system where you're going to score a bunch of points, where everybody can sit at the table and eat, and which opens more opportunities for everybody. I think that's appealing to kids, and we really sell our offensive production and our offensive efficiency. I think the other thing that's really attractive for the Bears right now is that we got a lot of guys playing professional basketball. I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it's 13. We have 13 current pros right now, and obviously Dalton Connect with the Lakers is the first one that jumps out at everybody. But before Dalton and after Dalton, we've got guys consistently making legitimate money in legitimate leagues, making a career out of being a basketball player. And this is not including the class that we have that's coming up. You've got St. Thomas, who recently has worked out with a lot of NBA teams. You've got Jaron Reilly right now, and you've got Isaiah Hawthorne. We've got, we could be looking at up to 16 pros when the fall comes. And so every young hooper wants a chance to be a pro. And so we've got guys that are pros. We play in a high octane offense. And I think those are the things we sell, and those are the things that have been appealing. Has it gotten easier with success? Well, of course, in a lot of ways. One thing that's made it harder too, though, is that we've all seen what NIL has done, and the price value for these guys has just gone up and up and up. And so that part makes it challenging still. You can still have high-octane offense. You can still have pros. You still have the success that we have, but sometimes guys are chasing something else, something green. And that talks a lot of times. And so those things carry us to a certain extent, but it doesn't always put us over the top with every recruit.
Okay. And then two fairly quick hitters. I want to make sure I get this read correctly. As someone who's seen so many places in the country, what is the armpit of this great nation?
What's the armpit?
Yeah, what's the armpit?
I told you before we got on, I said, listen, you can ask me anything. I'm an open book. I'll answer anything. I'm not answering that. I can tell you what I really think, but down there, I've got a high school coach, I've got a JUCO coach, I've got an AAU coach down there that I'm probably going to call in the next 10 days. And, the internet's one of the things that's undefeated. So I'm not going to respond on what I think is the armpit of this great nation. But my response will be political, and there's truth in it. The eye is in the beauty of the beholder. And so I think that can vary from person to person. And so I'm going to pass on a direct answer for that one there, Chris.
That's a spoken like a true professional.
Yeah. Yeah, I went Coach Smiley on that one.
And then best restaurant in the Arkansas Valley. This is for a very few limited listeners.
Yeah, man. For me in the Arkansas, man, you're pushing it. My wife and I are drawn to Taqueria and Rocky Ford, the big green building. Man, the tacos al pastor, the chips and the salsa, and then Lucy's is like right there. I'm a little down on Lucy's, to be honest with you. I went to Lucy's last time that we went through, and it was like $14 for a burrito. When I first started going to, it was like $6 for a carne asada or a California, and so I'm a little down. I used to like Boss Hogs. I mean, so Boss Hogs is in there. You remember what were they called? The chicken butts? I don't know.
I think so.
Jalapenos wrapped in bacon. So Boss Hogs was a favorite. But I would say that Taqueria is probably personally my favorite.
It as a place in Greeley that has pretty solid Mexican food, you just can't compete. You can't compete with down there.
No, it's just different. It's just different. Greeley, as far as where Lee and I have lived, is as good and as close to Mexican food as we're used to. Our feel and taste for Mexican food is just the authentic food. When we lived in the Arkansas Valley, I know you can relate to this. Some of the best Mexican food that we had never came from restaurants. It came from people that we knew in the community that made burritos every Sunday or every Saturday, or we had a lady at Otero that used to make me a plate of cheese and onion enchiladas. The Christmas time comes around, buying tamales. And so that's some of the best food, and the authentic part of that is still something that we still talk a lot about. And between that and obviously going over there to Knapp's Market and loading up on produce, those are all some of our favorite things about the Arkansas Valley for sure.
And one last one to close on. Do you remember the best 6'1" big you've ever seen at a high school basketball camp?
He's on this podcast.
That's what my ego needed, baby.
He's on this podcast.
He's got some eligibility left.
He does.
I bet just about every 6'1" big has some eligibility left.
Yeah. 6'1" bigs and rebounding guards, dime a dozen.
Awesome. Well, anything you want to touch on? Anything you want to pitch, plug? Well,
no, man.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, one thing I do want to pitch and plug, it's to you guys. I mean, over the last year and a half, 2 years, particularly this year, just having you guys and your guys' commitment to our program, and it's genuine. It's wholeheartedly. You guys put your own blood, sweat, and tears in covering the Bears, and covering men's basketball, and you guys do it with such joy in your heart, and sincerity. And it's something that, for me, it's something that comes off extremely authentic. And being authentic is something that's a characteristic I know for me that's extremely important. And your guys' coverage for us and who you guys are as people, and your true love and genuine care for our program and for UNC, and then bleeds on over to the care and the relationship that we have, and the love that we feel for you guys. And so we're extremely thankful for all that you guys do. And I know it doesn't always get noticed or recognized, but I wanted to take the time to make sure you guys knew how appreciative we are for you guys and the coverage you give our players, and the opportunity for those guys to be seen and heard goes much further and has a far reach than you probably know. So thank you sincerely from our staff for what you guys do.
Well, seriously appreciate that. You guys, you make it really easy to root for. You make it really easy the access you give us. I imagine there's probably not a ton of just jackasses out there who are getting that from a Division I basketball program. So
we got pretty good access this last summer. I got pretty intense, and then I looked over and I was like, I don't care.
Oh yeah. Hey, I remember. Hey, it's nothing I didn't see at Otero. So
you're not lying. That's good stuff.
But awesome. Thank you again, Coach. And to everybody out there, if you like what we're doing, please like, comment, subscribe. Ask your mom to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't, Ben's not here, but his inbox is always open for those complaints. So do not hesitate to hit him up. Have a good one.